Welcome back to the Underdog podcast. Today we have another Behind the Business for you guys. The last episode that we did for Behind the Business was more about launch day, initial marketing strategies that we used to get UD off the ground when we first started. And this one we're going to dive a little bit deeper into partnerships. So, towards the end of the last episode, we talked about that gyms were our main focus and target audience that we wanted to really attach to and build relationships with. And that kind of culminated into this sort of idea of gaining a partnership that can give us access to more gyms. So we ended up partnering with DEKA, which is a functional fitness event. We partnered with them. For what was that? August through December 2023.
Yeah, I mean the negotiations were ongoing for quite some time, but
Yeah.
yeah, we got the contract finalized in the first part of August before the first event, which was right before we headed to school. That would have been August 26th, I think was the first
Yeah.
event in Philly last year.
Yep. So we're going to dive into this partnership a little bit more and sort of the obstacles that arose and sort of our mindset in the beginning of why
Mhm.
the partnership, the audience that we were going for, the people that really attend these events, and I guess our experiences as well at each event. And then at the end, we're going to do a little Q&A for some question submissions through our social media that we had, and make sure if you guys want any of your questions answered on the Behind the Business segment, we'll be posting a story every single week, probably multiple times a week, to get as many questions as we can, and hopefully we'll be able to answer one of your questions. So I guess first and foremost, Dylan, what are your initial thoughts on the whole process of partnering with DEKA?
I mean, I think we were so excited for the opportunity to, especially when we came across. Eric was great with us when we first met with him, and I mean, it was just a cold reach out. You reached out to Spartan, and it was Eric who handles their strategic partnerships on behalf of the whole Spartan portfolio, and DEKA being a new one that was up and coming. So I guess, yeah, like you said, it's a functional fitness event, but it's kind of like, how we explained it was a CrossFit Games style. You have 10 stations, different functional fitness, like strength or conditioning events with running in between. And, one thing that we really tried to hammer home when we first launched was, like we said in the last episode, was the gym partnerships. And we wanted to find a way, okay, how can we get into a large number of gyms at once at scale and really grow this rather than, us reaching out to gyms individually, because it is tedious. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort for, in some cases, very little payoff. As rewarding as it is to have a great partnership on the business side of things, it's very time consuming. And, DEKA kind of seemed like that perfect opportunity to really get into a large amount of gyms in a quick amount of time. And that was our goal with it. And in theory, with all the information that we had at the time, it seemed like a really good opportunity if we could make it happen financially, because obviously the partnership fee attached with it was not something we could just throw money at. It was something that it would be a serious investment for us, and we really thought that it was the right decision if we could manage to get them to want us too. Like, even if we had the money, it's not that simple. They have to be engaged in what we were offering, and it had to work. And I mean, we started talking to Eric about partnership details and learning more about DEKA. I want to say it was like February of last year.
Yeah, I think it was even earlier, like January, like towards the end of
Yeah, like
January. Yeah.
most of second semester. Um, I guess no, that was while we were at while I was at LIU and you were first year at
Mhm.
UNE.
Yeah.
Um, like, we went back and forth for quite some time to try and negotiate how we could make this work, the ins and outs, what the partnership entails. And yes, obviously attending the events was big because we thought that would be great for, brand awareness and just exposure. You're going to have X number of people, 2,000 people walking through an event center where we had, our awesome tent, like our setup was great. And so there's, yes, that side of it for brand awareness, but the big piece of it was their gym partners. So along with DEKA was all their DEKA gyms that host events, have DEKA members, and then obviously those members attend the regional events. And the whole goal was, I mean, they had, when we started, about 200 gyms, and by the end of it they were over 300. And the whole idea behind our plan and why we wanted to get in with them so badly is so we would have access to this network of gyms. And okay, you're a gym partner with DEKA. We're one of the sponsors of DEKA. We're the official energy drink. Like, we thought there would be this cohesion between the gyms and the sponsors, and I just feel it didn't pan out the way we anticipated or the way we could have hoped. But and I'll let you jump in now too. Like, I think the whole goal behind it was we'd have access to this massive network, and we thought it would be so easy, not
Yeah.
easy, but simpler to have access. And we kind of had an in the door through DEKA in order to partner with some of these gyms.
Right.
And that was the whole goal behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest obstacle that we faced that we came across pretty early, even before DECA, of just working with gyms and trying to build that relationship, get a partnership going, is that it is so difficult to run a gym financially and be
Yep.
able to keep your head above water. And I learned that just through, I mean, I had to have between 50 and 100 gym meetings with managers or owners last year. And it
Mhm.
was basically, you know, yeah, it was based on the partnership. What can we bring to the table for you guys? How can we help? And that was an ongoing journey for us and a constant brainstorm of like figuring out how can we make this feasible for us, but at the same time still bring value to them.
Mhm.
But the financial side of it was definitely the most difficult. And honestly, every gym's different. You don't know how much inventory they're going to go through, what they currently offer, what their audience looks like. Some gyms, it's an older audience. Some gyms, it's like college and high school athletes and
Mhm.
that younger crowd, like that 18 to 35, which is obviously what we look for. And one thing that we did to combat this sort of financial pressure situation that the gym owners have is the contracting option, which I believe we talked about on the last episode, but it's worth mentioning again because it kind of ties into this whole DECA thing. Because we were trying to figure out, like, DECA was, like you said, a huge investment for us, so we needed to see it through. We needed to see through every opportunity
Mhm.
that we had in front of us, and obviously the gyms were our main focal point because I guess before I get to that, it's the back to the whole brand awareness thing. Is like, yeah, the events were great. We were able to sample, get people to try it, create communication, and interact with athletes. Serious athletes, competitive
Mhm.
athletes. But the problem is that DECA is a nationwide event and company. And for example, our first regional event we went to was in Philadelphia. Okay, great. That's more in the Northeast. Second one, Orlando. Third one, Dallas, right? So we don't have any distribution in Dallas. We don't have any distribution in Florida. So obviously the Philadelphia one was good in a sense, like it's not too far away, builds more awareness, on the online side of things. But then when you come to that scenario, it's like most people aren't buying beverages online. That's generally not seen in the industry right now. It's still brick and mortar. It's still convenience store, grocery store. People, it's on their shopping list to go grab their energy drink or their coffees or whatever it might be. So that was the hurdle that we had to face. So we had to see through the whole gym side of things. Um, so the contracting thing that we came up with to make it more feasible for the gyms was the contract. So okay, they commit to let's just say we'll say 18 cases over 6 months. That's 3 cases a month. So we know for a fact we're going to get the 18 cases by the end of the 6 months. So that makes it worth our time to regularly meet with them, build a relationship, try to build the awareness with their member base, and at the same time make it more financially reasonable for them, where they're only paying for the 3 cases each month. But we
Mhm.
know that we're going to be getting that revenue over that 6 month period, so we can allocate our time properly. And I think we had a few partners from the DECA community that were great. I mean, I
Yeah.
love once
Like
again, like
Forge
I
and
love
Fire.
yeah. There are a few in there. Fortune Fire, NDB,
Mhm.
Strive Fitness down in the Carolinas. Like
Yep.
those were awesome partnerships. And but I think the biggest thing is that we learned a lot about the gym community, and that was where the whole buyer mindset thing came in, where we kind of transitioned our focus to the convenience stores, grocery stores, getting into chains, because people aren't in a buying mindset when they're going into a gym. They're going in there more often than not to just work out, get their workout in for the day. They might walk out with a recovery drink or something like that, but they're not generally walking out with an energy drink, buying it from the front. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's funny you say that too. Like, even at Foley's the other day, I tried to like specifically watch, okay, how many people are actually buying something from the front and how many are walking in with
yeah,
it. most people walking in with shaker bottles, whatever it might be, you don't know. There were a few walked in with Gorilla Mind, which I thought was interesting because those are so new and I haven't really seen them on the shelves anywhere. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
are they ordering those online? Are they getting them from somewhere? Saw a few people buy stuff up front. There was a C4, a couple Celsius, but like, I was there 5 hours and you only saw a few drink sales at the gym. And, that's one thing that, we noticed before, like you said, is people are coming into the gym with them. They're usually not buying them on the spot and putting it down and getting into their workout. So that's definitely something we learned too. And I wanted to add too, not that we expected it to be overnight, not that we came into this partnership with, okay, we're the official energy drink of DEKA. We're going to be in all 300 gyms next week. Like, not that we, like, it was a slow and tedious process. It was a lot more work. Like you said, you probably had 100 affiliate calls
Yeah.
with the different gyms. And it really was a gym by gym basis. And yes, some of the great partnerships came out of that, like NDB, for example, and, Forge and Fire. Like great things did come from it, but it just didn't scale or grow in the way that we really wanted it to and the way we anticipated it to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the other thing too is, the more that we do this, the more that we learn of just putting ourselves in front of an opportunity. Still, even if an investment doesn't pan out, as long as you gain something from it, that might not even have a monetary value, but it could be a resource, a network connection that you have. I mean, we had so many different insights. A perfect example is oh my God, Powerlift. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they're called, right? Yeah, Powerlift.
Yeah.
We got they're further ahead in the game. They had a lot more upfront funding and investments to work with. I believe it was venture capital money that they were able to to really get it off the ground. Vita Coco, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is the
Owns
parent
them.
company. Yeah, owns them.
Yeah.
So obviously they had substantial backing right off the bat, but we got to understand a little bit more about distribution side of things, what they're where they're located currently, how they got into the distribution space, adversities they've sort of faced along the way, and all that stuff is just so valuable to us. It's invaluable because we haven't done it. We at that point we had no distribution. We had no um, you know no understanding of that market right away of how are we going to get this thing into retail accounts, chains, and distribution, and how do we build more awareness around it? And obviously, they do a ton of events, right? Like they were going, I believe they were
They're
Expo
all
East,
over the
Expo West.
place.
Yeah, every weekend they got a different event, which is great. It allows you to build more brand awareness and all that kind of stuff, but also you need the financial backing to be able to do those kinds of things. So we were like, okay, how can we really hone in and build the brand awareness? And that's where it comes all back to the community that we're building, right? And this is something that I've reiterated to every single person that has either worked part-time for us or an affiliate or whatever it is this whole community thing. Like, always present your best self at all hours of the day. Like, there's no reason for you, I'll use us for an example, right? At the sampling, to not be enthusiastic and not be passionate about the product and about the vision that we have, because that sort of lights up them, right? The person that
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to, whether it's an athlete or a convenience store owner or manager. Like, a lot of these people just have mundane lifestyles. A convenience store is a perfect example. They're coming to the store every day. They're working there freaking all day, literally. The manager, the owner, they're doing everything in there, and you can see it as soon as you walk in on their face. Like, it's a boring thing to do, man. Like, it's boring. So if you go in there and you're passionate about it, you're enthusiastic, you're excited to tell them and how we can bring value to them, it makes the conversation that much easier, and it brings them closer tied into the community. Like, that's what we're trying to do with the affiliate program and the college athletes, is like, we're in this for them. As much as we're in it for us, we're in it for them too. Like, we want to be able to add value, because at the end of the day, like, if you're just trying to move product to gain a profit, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And even if it does work short term, it's not a long term thing. And we're trying to build not just a brand. Like,
Brand.
we want to build an empire. Like,
Yeah.
that's what we want to do. We want to be that next supplement brand that has a community that is like willing to die for the brand. Like, that is the kind of people that we want to have on board. And I think those events, the DECA events, were a great opportunity to understand different consumer behaviors, what people are looking for in a brand. And I think across the board, like, everybody loved our story. Everybody loved the product and the vision that we had, and that goes a long way in for us to understand that we're doing the right thing. Like, we're on the right path to get to where we want to be. It's just a slow crawl. Like, that's that's just business to a T, right? Like you need the demand to be successful, and the only way you can create demand is by building the community, building relationships, networking, getting resources, all those sorts of things, which I think we've done a great job of getting better at, collectively over the past few months, the past year.
Yeah, I think those are two things we've learned. One is just the importance of networking and making connections. Like even at the convenience store the other day, okay, yes, we sold a few cans, we got awareness, it was great, but we made a key connection with someone who could potentially help down the road. And like we always say it, like it's all about who you know and expanding our network. Take that meeting, have that phone call, shake this guy's hand, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like it's all about forming a network and the connections you can have. And on that, the other thing I was going to say is I think the other big thing we learned from DEKA, or that we took away from DEKA, is that it was maybe a little too soon. And
Mhm.
something like the DEKA partnership could be of more value to us down the road when we have distribution in all these areas, when we are, say, nationwide or more or less nationwide. And you have the awareness where people are like, oh, I've seen these guys. Like, let's go check that out. It's not just like, okay, what's this Underdog tent sort of thing?
Yeah.
Like I think it was just too soon. It was the right idea, and with the information that we had, like it's always easy to play hindsight and look back like shit. Imagine if we had all the money that we invested into DEKA right now. Well, yeah, that would be nice. But with the information that we had at the time, like we made the right decision. We had the best intentions in mind, and in theory, it was a great plan. And again, that's business. That's the way things go.
Yeah.
Um, but like we said, like we took away a lot from that, and something like that down the road could be of more value and something we explore again. XYZ years or months, whatever it may be later. I think you look at the brands that took over. It's the Congo brands, Alani and
Mhm.
Prime Energy became the rest of the energy drink sponsor for the rest of the year. Like those are massive names. Everyone who's attending an ADECA event knows what Prime and Alani are.
Mhm.
Like they're just in a different position in terms of where they're at in business. So I think just to kind of summarize all that, it's something that we'll definitely explore down the road. And there's other partnerships that we want to have down the road too when we're in a position where it's the right move now,
Yeah.
where it can bring us more value.
Yeah, and one thing I was thinking about too, and this has happened numerous times since starting the brand, is like actually practicing what you preach and living by your brand values and your ethos. Like us, especially like being the founders, like we always have to stand by that ethos of the underdog, right? And I think we got to see that when we went to Philadelphia. That was like our first event. We didn't really know what to expect. We drove there, like we brought all the product and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to tell the story because I think it's valuable in terms of what we're trying to do as a brand. So the director, he was the director of what was it? Mark, what was his title? Do you remember?
Mark Jones, he was the race coordinator, I
Race
believe.
coordinator, yeah. Yeah. So the race coordinator, and he's super fit guy, like runs ultras, like does all the. He was trying to do the some ruck for the Guinness Book of World Records. Was it the
I think
fastest
it was the
100 mile or
I think it was the most miles in 24 hours
most?
in a row.
Yeah, right,
I think
right,
is what
right.
it was. Yeah.
So he, quickly acquainted himself with us when we got to the event, and he's a ex-military guy, like he's badass. He's in sick shape, and really good. First of all, deck community, awesome, awesome people, great staff, everything like
Everyone
that.
was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was pretty quick too. Like once we got set up, he comes over, starts chatting us up and everything like that. And he's like, "So which one of you guys is going to compete, in the event this week?" And we're like, "We're we're sampling. We're going to be sampling all day and like talking to athletes and stuff like that." And he's like, "Oh, like." You can still compete. Like plenty of guys are doing that who are running tents and stuff. And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the event, he was like, I better see one of you guys signing up for or doing the one in Orlando, which was what, like a month later after that event.
Yeah, it was when we go to Orlando end of September, I think, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Because we
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
miss any hockey with it, so it
No,
must have been
yeah.
just before the season. Yeah.
And he kept bringing it up, like he kept hounding us on it, like which one of you guys is going to compete? Which one
We're
of you
like,
guys?
what's this guy's deal? Like, we're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to run a business here. Like, we're not competing in the event. Like, what?
And then,
And
yeah.
we had another run-in with him early on too about the product, right? Or was that in Orlando? I'm trying to think because remember he kind of like barked at us. We're like, what's this guy's deal? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was over one of the shipments, right?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. Well, it was our first time, and we had to send the shipment to a certain area. That was down in Orlando because we were missing part
Yes,
of our
right.
our inventory when we got down there, and we had to figure that out, which was a crisis in itself. But besides the point.
Story for another episode.
Yeah, story for another episode. But anyways, it just kind of like disappeared into thin air. Like went in the back seat, and then we get to Orlando a month later, and he's like, he didn't forget. Like we thought he was just gonna totally let it breeze by, and he was like, so we're starting the Ruck Division event in 20 minutes. Like, which one of you guys is gonna do it? And I was like, this is I have to do it. Like, there's no
And
other
it was
option.
like, and just to put it in perspective too, this was like 12:40 and the ruck was at 1 and we had been there since 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
No
Nope.
food. Like we're just drinking UD and handing out samples all
You know,
morning.
legit. We had a couple freaking hard boiled eggs from the gas
7-Eleven.
station. And yeah, no water, just UDs, standing in the tent all day, talking to people. And he comes over and I was like, you know what? Like this is what we have to do. Like this and this is what they expect too. Like seeing the underdog, like our vision that we have, the mission that we have, like they want to see that the people behind it are doing what they say they're doing, and which we do, but we weren't planning on doing it that day, that's for sure. And but anyways, make a long story short, end up competing 20 minutes later. And thanks to you guys, because Pelly's coming over. Jacob, our director of affiliates, comes over. He's got water for me. Dylan gives me his shoes because I had Converse. I was like, I can't run in freaking Converse with a ruck on my back. Like, there's no way. And ended up, what was it, third place in that regional event?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, so
Third,
got
yeah.
third place at the event in Orlando, and then ended up qualifying for Worlds, which was in December, a few months later in Dallas. And so that was pretty cool too, because you get to understand a little bit more about what the athletes are doing too. I thought it was a great event. I think what they had in place for the different exercises and stuff like that. Like, it's challenging, it's tough, especially with a
Mm.
freaking 35-pound ruck on your back. Like, it's no joke. And then yeah, that ended up in Orlando. That was the only clothes I brought that day, so I was just sitting in my own sweat for like the next 6 hours, which was nice.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I loved sitting beside you.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was
Did you want to talk about Philly, like our whole DEKA, first
yeah,
DEKA experience
yeah,
on this episode?
yeah. We can dive into it a little bit. You probably have a better recollection of it than I do, but yeah, if you want to give a few.
Or do we want to do all of them since I mean the race was in Orlando
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
did, right? Yeah, okay. Um, like do you want to dive into Philly?
yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So I guess just to jump into to fast forward, we finalized the contract with
Yeah,
Eric and kind of got brought on to the Spartan team, got all our graphics and like the A-frames and part of the marketing materials, um, ready to ready to rock basically because now it was kind of on a bit of a crunch as far as the timeline because we finalized everything in the first part of August and I was coming back to the States. We had just actually gone to Chicago, which was our
right.
first trip. So maybe we'll save the Chicago trip for the next episode
Yeah,
because that was our first like big, well, I guess second big trip other than LA.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, we met in Chicago, came back, and then we had basically 3 weeks to get ready for DEKA. The tent had come in just in time. Um, Table runner, all the banners, like our setup was sweet. We'll have to post some pictures of it. Um, and yeah, we it was nice. I think it was good that the first one was in Philly too because we didn't have to fly and worry about shipping all this stuff. Like we
mm,
kind of got to get a feel for it and really kind of get the lay of the land scoped out. So yeah, the first one was in Philly. We drove down 2 vehicles, put all the product, all the tent parts, everything we would need as far as our setup, and yeah, made our way to Philly. Kind of just showed up, like we didn't know what to expect. We're like, yeah, we were given the contact, here's your contacts. We're like, okay, we show up in the morning, um, got there, first thing, because the first day was all just set up, and then everything kicked off the following day. We go in and there's just people ripping around everywhere, and we're like, holy crap. And like, there's nothing, the course isn't set up at all. And I mean, they put that thing together in a hurry, and it's
Yeah.
not like, you got to think every station, how many different, units there are,
Yep.
like all the rowers, all the bikes, all the sleds, and all of it's put together and assembled and comes off a friggin' semi. So that was pretty cool to see. And then, yeah, we got our tent set up, kind of found our location. Like, okay, we're kind of just like, again, I guess this is where hockey kind of translates into business in a sense that it was just like read and react, We got in there and we're like, okay, here's what we're given, here's the situation, how can we make the most of this? Try and position ourselves in the best spot as people were coming in. We were the energy drink for, pre-workout before. We wanted to be associated with everyone warming up before their race, and we strategically kind of planned everything out and got set up. And that was when we ended up meeting Meg at that first
Mhm.
event in Philly. Like, again, there's a great connection that came out to it, and it's cool to see how well she's doing with High Rocks and
Crazy. She's
everything
blown
else
up
she's doing.
over the past
Yeah,
few months.
it's funny you say that because I looked at her Instagram following the other day, and it was like when we were talking to her, I don't think she had broke 10K. And
No.
while we were with her, she broke 10K, kind of in the fall of last year, and now she's at 30,000.
Yeah.
Like, she's really blown up, and I mean, she's a freaking beast. But like, that was a great connection that came out of our first event. Um, but it was really cool. Like, we had great interaction. We had tons of people come up. Like, it was kind of everything that we could have hoped for as far as the first event.
Mhm.
I think one thing again that we were disappointed with was we couldn't make sales on the spot because of the venue.
Mhm.
And again, it's easy to associate that with DEKA, even though it's not their fault. Like, it's the venue saying, okay, we want to make sales and sell food. Like, that was kind of a bummer because, again, that was another thing that we anticipated was going down there. Okay, we'll be at the event and we'll be able to move a bunch of cases. Like, hell, we brought a shit ton of cases. We're like, these ones will be used for sampling. We'll be able to sell all these off. People will try it. They'll come back. Like, they'll be interested. And then we get there, no sales. And we couldn't even be giving out full cans either. Like, we had to be,
Yeah.
and we got in shit a couple times for giving out full cans.
Yeah.
So, like, that was one thing that was like, okay, Orlando will be different because we thought we would be able to make sales there. But other than that, we had good interaction. And from a brand awareness standpoint, it was kind of everything we asked for.
Mhm.
Um, we had it all set up to try and gather as many emails as we could and really take advantage of other aspects of the business without directly making sales. Um, but all in all, it was a neat experience for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, on that point too, we talk about it all the time, but I think, if you're expecting to go into business or start anything or work a high paying job, whatever it might be, you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't think that shit is going to hit the fan, it is going to hit the fan real hard and it's going to go all over the place. So it's something you just have to adapt to, like you take what you can get,
Just
right?
rolling with the punches.
Yeah,
Yep.
roll with the punches. Like whatever comes your way, you deal with it. Like there's no point in crying about it. There's no point in worrying about it. Like you have to, if you worry about it, like why? Like you got to find a solution for it. It's your brand, it's your business, it's your vision, your mission. Like you need to find a way to make it work, right? Whatever it might be. And that's why it's so important. Like you got to think on your feet. You got to figure things out. You might come up with a freaking full plan, full strategy for whatever. It's a partnership on a larger scale, the business plan, right? Like things change all the time. All the time. How many times we've updated that freaking business plan? It's the same thing with marketing strategies and going to an event, right? Like we go into that event with all these different content ideas that we could do and we couldn't end up doing half of them,
Mm.
and that's just how it is, right? So you got to figure out on your feet how is this going to work? How can we maximize this opportunity that we're given? And it's just an everyday thing, like everyday thing. Look at what we're dealing with right now, right? With distribution and launching into our first chain. Like there's plenty of things that are coming up. You think it's going to be smooth sailing. It's not. And I think the faster that you can accept that nothing is going to be smooth sailing, the quicker that you will just come to conclusions and solutions much faster. As if you can just accept that there's going to be adversities, there's going to be obstacles that are going to be thrown at you every freaking day, and you just got to find a way to do it. So, I think we'll save the Orlando and the Dallas one for a later one because next episode we'll dive into Chicago trip that we had. But today we wanted to do a little bit new thing. So we had we have a Q&A, Ask Underdog Anything, on the story, but we ended up, I think some of these are great questions, so we can dive into it on the podcast and share these clips on our Instagram. But the first question is, this is obviously more of a personal one, but has starting Underdog had any effects on our personal lives? So Dylan, I'll let you start that one off.
I think we briefly chatted about it before. It does, to be brutally honest, make me question my sanity most days. In the simplest terms, has it affected my personal life positively or negatively? I mean, yes, it's obviously affected my personal life in both facets. Um, I think the biggest piece is just like the sacrifices it takes. Like
Hmm.
if we look, okay, I'm from a smaller town in Alberta, Canada, and I spend most of my time here on the East Coast. Like that's a sacrifice. Would I love to be home with my family in the summer for more than 6 weeks out of the year? Absolutely. Is it necessary to be here in order to do what we're doing? Absolutely. So
Mhm.
I think like that's obviously a way that Underdog has affected my personal life. Like, yeah, I'm here. Has it affected relationships with previous girlfriends or friends or teammates? Yes. Like, are we going out on Saturday night? No. Like, it's just like it's stuff like that that is a necessary sacrifice in order to do what we do. Like, this is a massive time commitment, and I don't think anyone understands that. Like, I don't even think my parents understand that. Like, the time that goes into this and like just the time you spend on your computer, whether it's emails or just administrative stuff, like little things that aren't, that get overlooked, the
To
minute
just push the
details.
needle, to just push the
Yes,
needle a little bit further.
there
Yeah.
there is so much time that goes into that, and I mean, you're probably the only other person that understands that.
Yeah.
Like there's only 24 hours in a day, so the time has to come from somewhere, and you have to sacrifice other things. Like, is our workout schedule ideal? Probably not. Is our training schedule ideal for playing hockey? Probably not. Is our sleep schedule? Absolutely not. Like, do we spend a bunch of time with our family and friends as much as a normal kid? No, but those are all necessary sacrifices to do what we do. And in summary, yes, they affect our personal life. Has it affected my life positively? Yes, 110%. I love what we do. Like, we're building something special. Have I made friends and new connections because of what we're doing? Yes. I mean, look at the Elliott Group. That's a
Perfect.
way it's positively affected my personal life. Like, if we weren't doing what we were doing, we wouldn't be going out to see Andy Elliott and hang out with him for 3 days and take in an event with Patrick Beck David and not even just be a guest. Like, we're with his team, we're wearing his shirt, we're with his team, we're with his guys, we're seeing his headquarters. We have a custom fridge that I'm so excited to see because that took a lot of time. Like,
We better get some
hell,
good ass pictures when we're out there.
I know. I know, like, I mean, you designed all the graphics. We went back and forth with Arizona Sign. I don't know how many times. I remember laying in bed trying to get the files to download. I'm like, why won't these? Like, it was just like so many little things that go into it. And it's like, oh, you had someone design a fridge for you. It's like, well, yes, but they don't see all the other shit that went into getting the fridge done. Like everything from even
And
arranging the
no,
shipping.
not just getting the fridge done, but getting it there too.
That's what I mean. Like, and finding a fridge that was in stock that would let us buy it. Like, it was just everything was a nightmare.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like right down to the last second, we're like, Andy, is anyone at the headquarters? Like, this fridge is there. Like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like never ending. So I guess not to get off track, but like, I can't wait to go see it, and that's a way that it's positively affected my personal life. So I know that was long winded, but how about you, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to me, but it's almost a little bit deeper in that I knew that this is what would have to be done from the start. Like as soon as I started thinking about this, and for the longest time, I've been following the top business guys, the top entrepreneurs, and most of them aren't bullshitting. Like the ones that have actually done it, like there are sacrifices you have to make, 1000%. But the
Yep.
thing is those sacrifices become kind of second nature, and it just becomes a scheduling thing, right? Like, man, you said it best, but like spending time with my family, like I would love on the weekends just to hang out, go fishing with my dad or go to a freaking gun range with my dad or hang out with my mom by the pool, like all those sorts of things. Like I would love to do that. But now it's like this is almost um, you know, it's kind of like hockey in the sense that you have a career path that you want to be on and where you anticipate being, right, in the
Mhm.
future. And how you want to get there is just working backwards, right? And that's like a daily thing. So now like on the weekends, right? Like when I'm if I'm not working and I'm not pushing the needle a little bit further, I feel guilty. I feel like
Mhm.
I, something's off, right? It's normal to be doing the work on the weekends, putting in the time. It's abnormal to like, for example, this past weekend, from freaking at 9 p.m. going to a drive-in movie with my girlfriend at 9 o'clock was like, that's it just felt wrong. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I should be getting in bed early, getting up early to push the needle a little further, right? Like, and that's the thing. That's like just the brutal reality of a startup is that we're it, you know? Like we're it. If we're not working on it, it's not going anywhere, you
Yeah,
know? It's gonna stay
which is
stagnant.
tough
So
because
yeah,
at times it feels like there's assets of it or aspects of it that are out of our control. Like we're waiting for someone else to,
yeah,
answer an email, or with this distribution part, like this is something totally new because for us, the distribution was all on us going to the store, making the delivery. Like it was in our control. And now we have distributors and we're learning that like as much as it's just us running this, like there's pieces of it that are just out of our control. And that's what's so aggravating.
yeah.
Anyways, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And I think just on that too, like Monday through Friday, when you really think of it, like those are regular business hours for running business. So during the week, it's really like that's where we're working on our feet, like trying to solve problems. There's always problems that come up on generally a Monday, and they need to be solved by Friday, right? Like that's generally what it is. And the weekends, for me, anyways, it's an opportunity to one reflect on the past week and come up with a solution for the following week for whatever it might be, or just brainstorming like big vision stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm. And catching
That's
up and getting ahead on like the tedious things like this,
Yep,
okay, yes, today's Monday, but getting ahead on stuff like this that
yep,
we don't have time for during the week.
yeah, absolutely. But I guess further on the question too, on affecting the personal life, like I want to say two things. One is in response to what you said about the connections that you gain and the friendships that the relationships that you can build from starting something like this, is that if you're just doing the normal stuff on a day-to-day basis, right? Like for us, right? If we were just going to school, playing hockey, whatever it is, you're limited to what you have there, which is generally a lot of people in that freaking 17 to 23-year-old range where they're just focused on, you know, small-minded things, right? Like getting through school,
Finish
partying on
school,
the
get a
weekends,
job. Yeah.
yeah, get a job, like all those sorts of things. There's no ambitious mindset with a lot of individuals, and I think that an opportunity like this, you get to see what it can be like if you see it through, if you can find a way to succeed, right? Like this, the whole Elliot thing, right? Like being around those kinds of people. I mean, a perfect example is that whole like beach day gathering that we had with their team, where every single conversation, there wasn't a single alcoholic beverage on the beach. There was probably about 50 people there, and it was just all growth mindset. It was all like, what are you guys working on? Where do you
Mhm.
want to be? What are some experiences that you had? A lot of, difficulties and all those sorts of things come up, but I was like looking around. I was like, these are the people that I want to be around, you know? And I think that's like what we're trying to build. Like we want to build that. We want to build that same kind of environment. Um, but on the other thing I wanted to mention on the personal life thing is understanding what you're getting yourself into is very important, and expecting more, like more adversity than what you're anticipating, because that's going to be the fact of it. I mean, hockey was, I honestly has been a sacrifice for me too. In this whole process is like I always wanted to play Division 1 college hockey, play professional hockey, and honestly, the more that I moved along in hockey, the more I was like, I'm working for other people, you know? And I don't like that. I've never been like that, and that's why I ultimately started the brand, is because I want to be able to create my own destiny per se. And in hockey, it's a very there are a lot of things that kind of have to come together for things to work out. And but time commitment wise, right? Like hockey was my every that was my 24/7. And now my 24/7 is building the business, right? And kind of fitting hockey into this schedule and training and all that kind of stuff. But I think overall it's a positive. And especially as we continue to grow it and the people that we meet along the way, the the intelligence and knowledge that you can gain from doing something like this is unfathomable. As long as you're willing to actually learn, right? Like I feel like a lot of people are just like, they shut their mind off and it's like their way or the highway. But I think we've been very open-minded to, okay, oh, this is, perfect example, Loco Coffee, right? Like we met with the founders and we gained some insights from them. And obviously, like we don't have much to give them right now in terms of value, but eventually we'll be able to do that for the next people to come down the line, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is that kind of community that you're like, wow, this really is a possibility. And I think that goes a long way in keeping you going every single day. So um, that's all I got on that one. And the second question we got here, this is more of a fun one.
I'm
I'm
gonna
actually
jump in, Joe, real quick before you go
yeah,
ahead with this one. I wanted to add one more piece on the family side of things. I guess for those that are still listening, I think it could be of value. One thing, we talk about the sacrifices with your family, missing that time, being away from them, being here, whatever, like whatever it may be. Like you said, okay, for me, it's physically being away from them. For you, yes, you'd love to go to the gun range or go fishing with your dad, lay by the pool, whatever it might be. I think one thing that this has done for me as well, and I don't think people realize this until they're much older. I'd say very few people at 23 really understand it, and it's really this whole process of Underdog has put this into perspective. Is like how fast time goes, and just to cherish that time you do get with your parents. And I think most people are probably in their 40s and 50s when they're like, okay, I don't have a whole lot of time left with my parents.
hmm
And it's rare at 23, I'd say, to be able to be like, I really enjoy just spending time with my parents,
yeah,
and just valuing, the time that you do get to spend with them whenever you get to go home, see them at Christmas, see them in the summer. You really value and cherish that time with them.
yeah,
And it goes quick.
yeah,
So I'd say
yeah,
that's something that someone can always take away. I think, if there's other kids listening that are our age, just to be like, you know, especially if you're living at home and you see them every day, it's easy to take it for granted because you can take it from me. Trust me, the time goes quick, and all of a sudden they're 3,000 miles away, and you see them for 6 weeks, and you just got to cherish that time with them and just value it and take every second in. I know when I'm home with them, or I'm at the cabin with my dad, and we're just whatever digging holes, cutting trees down, like just tedious little things. Like you just appreciate it so much.
yeah,
So I think that's one thing that Underdog has put into perspective and positively. Like I understand that time is limited with them, and you have to value every second you get with them,
yeah,
and not just your parents, but everyone around you. Like whatever you're sacrificing, whatever relationship is sacrificing for something you're building, the time you do
yeah,
have with them, value it, appreciate it.
yeah,
I just think so many people overlook that, and it's worth saying. So,
yeah.
anyways,
And
continue. Yes.
well, yeah, no, and on that too, because it's very valuable, I think. And one thing that I saw that kind of really opened my eyes, and I probably saw this a couple of years ago, but talking about like when you move out, when you move away from home, right? Or say, you're not in close proximity, right? You're a few states over or whatever it is, and you're only seeing your parents on the holidays or something like that, right? Well, you put it together however many holidays there are in a year, and you multiply that by the average life expectancy, and it's like, holy shit, like you're not going to see your
Don't understand.
parents, you can in the hundred, if you're lucky enough being young, right? Like you got a few hundred more times if you've moved away. So like things like that, they put things into perspective, but it's on my mind a lot, like things like that, right? Like holy shit, like that's why I want to, move the needle faster, quicker, so you can get the opportunity to like, okay, this weekend I'm gonna hang with my family, or
Yeah.
go on a little vacation or whatever it might be. But that's not in the foreseeable future, unfortunately. But my mom always says stop and smell the roses. She's
Hmm.
always said that since I was younger, and I really started to do all these sorts of things. And initially I was like, Ma, like, you don't understand, like, you don't understand, like, these are the things you have to do, like, to be successful, blah, 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 blah. And I think what she really trying to say is like when you do have the time and you have the opportunity is to just be where you are, be where your
Be
feet are.
present. Hmm.
Yes. And I've totally misconstrued that over the years, and I think like I finally kind of understand it of like where you are, right? Like you're like you said, like you get that short amount of time with your family or your parents or whatever it is, like be there, right? Like don't, it's like that saying of the guy who's like, when I'm in the office, I want to be at the beach, and then when I'm on the
Yep, I
beach,
was
I'm thinking
just gonna
about being in
say.
the office. And it's true. Like and it's the hardest thing to do. It is
Hmm.
100% the hardest thing to do because you have things to do. You could be doing something that can help move your vision further. But when it really comes down to it, like the whole purpose of life, I think, is truly like family, and that's honestly the goal, right? Is like to provide. Like that's the goal. So those are just things that I think are very valuable, and it's not like we haven't figured out at all, but at least it's in there, and it's a thought, and it's an active process, just like anything to be able to become better and well versed in with that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so the last question is if Underdog had a theme song, what would it be?
I know we were kind of joking about this last night. I think there's a few good songs that kind of summarize Underdog as a whole, and then for us personally, what it's like to run a business. I know we were looking at some funny ones, but if I had to think of a good one, what would you say for a good theme song for UD?
I mean, I think you already know what my answer is going to be. It's just so happens to be my favorite like workout song, Cinderella Man, by Eminem. But it's literally talking about the underdog. Like Cinderella Man is about the boxer who grew up in the Great Depression and he had to find a way to provide for his family, and he ended up like climbing the ranks in boxing and becoming a big thing. You know what I mean? And you have to read the lyrics if you don't know the song, but I think that is probably most correlative to like me, but also Underdog itself.
Yep, I've probably listened to you play that song. I don't know how many times over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a good one though, and like you said, it's good. I think some other good ones are like we joked, but it's kind of true. Like Drake started from the bottom. Like you
Yeah.
start from absolutely nothing, and you still okay. Then you look back. I forget how the song goes now. Whatever he says. Now we're here, and it's like okay. You look back. We have our first chain. We have X amount of online orders. We have X amount of retailers. Like we have accomplished things. We're Informed Sports certified. We have two flavors out. We're working on a third. Like we are here, and it's neat to see where we've come from, and how it started as just t-shirts and two dudes talking to each other.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean honestly there's so many songs that like we could really put to this, but yeah, well, what we'll have to do is we'll have to get a playlist together, like an Underdog playlist. That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool. And just have it like a community thing, like for the affiliates and athletes and stuff like that. But yeah, so once again, guys, like, follow us on Instagram at underdog_brand. We're going to be posting to the story for questions that you can submit. Obviously, all of our content's going to be on there too for little snippets from the podcast that we feel are most valuable. But yeah, we'd love for you guys to submit more questions. We'll talk about it on here as much as we can. And yeah, be sure to follow us. You can listen to this episode and our podcast overall on all streaming platforms. We've got the video version on YouTube as well. Some people like to watch the video. I personally love watching video podcasts. I don't know why,
Mm.
but I'm a huge fan of it. So we thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you got something out of this. And if you did, all that we ask is that you leave a review and share with a friend. I think that's probably all that we can ask for, and the most that we can ask for something like this, because really we're just trying to spread our vision, our mission, and get you guys to understand a little bit more of why we're building this and how we're building it on the day-to-day side of things. So thanks again for listening. We'll see you guys on the next episode.